Welcome to the Basketball and Brew podcast, produced by Jude McLaren, and I'm your host, Dan Miller. Thank you for joining us for this week's podcast, and please help us out by subscribing to our podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you are watching, and please give us a follow on Twitter. Today's podcast is brought to you by our sponsors, both right here in beautiful San Marcos, Texas. Pie Society is an excellent stop for great New York-style pizzas made with the freshest ingredients, local beers on tap, and an overall fun and cool vibe. And come into Zelik's Ice House for their happy hour drink specials, spacious outside patio, and a great time with friends. We are very excited tonight to welcome Coach Sundance Wicks to the podcast. After turning around Missouri Western University State with two highly successful seasons as their head coach, Sundance returned home to his home state for 3 successful seasons as an assistant at the University of Wyoming, before being named this spring the new head men's basketball coach at Wisconsin Green Bay. Coach Wicks, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Cheers, brother.
Spotted cow.
Spotted cow. You know what it is, man. It's like pyro. If you bring that across state lines, you might get arrested, man. I mean, you can't only get it in Wisconsin.
You can only get it in Wisconsin. And even though I'm in Texas now, I'm from Wisconsin, so I know about the legendary spotted cow. That's what's coming to Basketball and Brew is all about, having some fun and talking hoops. Coach, my man, I wish I could get that down here, but that's great. That's powerful. That sure beats Coach Miles' Coors Light that he had. So
I'll tell you what, Coors Light's classy. A little Colorado Kool-Aid. I'm never going to judge anybody, right? You know, if you're a Busch Latte guy or a Colorado Kool-Aid guy, there's all types. But I tell you this right now, the old spotted cow, hard to beat on a warm summer day up here in Wisconsin.
Love it, and love Wisconsin, of course, being from up there myself. Coach, first thing I got to ask, how are things going at the University of Wisconsin Green Bay?
Man, quick, fast, in a hurry. It's about day 90 right now. So it actually kind of caught me on like one of those little, weird full moon segments here where it's like, you got 30, 60, 90 days, 60-day sprint, kind of a 90-day glide, right? You're kind of, I always tell people I'm sailing in right now, kind of feeling the flow a little bit, and kind of got my sea legs about me. And so, I mean, we've done a ton of things in 90 days. And I just, man, I think you got to write a book at some point when you're in the coaching profession and you've been able to go to programs, become a head coach, and everybody has their niche, right? Some people are really good at following, Coach Myers, I was like, never follow a legend, man.
Right.
It's like hard because they're legendary for a reason, right? They've done all these things and created all this capital with human capital and this credibility that when you follow those guys, like there's a standard that they just expect from those guys. And it's great. But I also, there's an art to this, and everybody's got to find their niche. And I'm just an energetic guy, right? So I love the rebuild. I love to run it. I always like to run into burning buildings and save the women and children. It's like I get a kick out of that. I get a rush out of it because I just have this unlimited amount of energy that I need to spend. And I love to invest in the people that are part of these communities. And that's no different if it was Northern State. I mean, like Coach Meyer, he taught me a lot when he brought me into Northern State when I was a player, because he got to go through that coaching transition where he followed Bob Olson, who was a legend. They just went to the Elite Eight, and they had a standard. And he came in and he's like, I know we're going to do my standard, right? We're going to make it mine. And we got worse because you always get worse before you get better. Progress is never linear. We'll talk about that later, but you always get worse before you get better. And I just learned a lot from that on how to instill standards and culture and fight through kind of those choppy waters, so to speak.
Right. Well, I'm very excited, to see what you're going to do there, and that energy. They need that, Coach. They need that at Wisconsin Green Bay, because when I grew up in the 1980s, Wisconsin Green Bay basketball was great. I mean, we had Tony Bennett, Ben Johnson, almost beat Steve Smith in the NCAAs. And I've been gone a while, but I keep up from afar, and I was so excited when you got the job because I know the energy you bring, and you're going to embrace these great fans that you have up there in Green Bay.
Well, the history too, so you talk about the Bennett era, right? Which everybody knows, very well. But having conversations with Dave Buss, who's the godfather, this is 1969 is when Green Bay basketball started. And we got this 1969 society to kind of honor the past and ignite the future. And you're talking about Dave Buss, who, I mean, think about it. I'm a Division II guy, right? You coach Division II basketball. You're up there with Greg Steeman at Southwest Minnesota State.
That's right.
Paths crossed. And Dave Buss he was a runner-up, national runner-up twice in the Final Four, right? Once. So, I mean, in the 80s, Green Bay was killing it. And he had to start that program. And Dave Buss transitioned him from NAI to Division II to Division I. I mean, you tell me, like, just do a fun fact trivia question. Like, what college coach transitioned the school into 3 separate eras?
Right.
And had some dudes. I mean, he loved to tell a story about how, nobody in Wisconsin, when they started their program, nobody in Wisconsin would play him. Oshkosh wouldn't play him. And then the oil embargo happened and they had to play local. And so they played him the first time. I think they beat him like 100-59. And Bus just crushed him. It's like nobody wanted to play me ever again after that. But he had some real fellas, man.
Right. Right. Yeah. Some legendary coaches. And it's going to be fun to watch you restore the program, Coach. It really is. First, before I get into your principles, which I love that you shared with me, Coach, and we talk about the principles that you want to build with UWGB basketball, I want to talk about roster building. Because when you take over a program, nowadays, especially in college basketball, I mean, you have to rebuild the roster. Can you talk to me about how that is going and how you go about doing that?
Yeah, this is I think there has to be a method to your madness. I don't care who you are or how you do it, right? I think people can look from the outside looking in and they can see things. And sometimes they're like, oh, that guy's just getting a bunch of portal guys, or that guy's, the programs that really make it have a plan for how they're going to attack the portal or how they're going to attack high school recruiting. And I think the first thing you do is you assess when you get a job, right? You assess what you have on the roster. And I think, you assess the roster, not just on ability, but right. So there's a couple A's here. There's ability, athletic ability. Most people can see your ability level. Right. But then it's your academic accountability, right? Like, what's your academic profile, right? Then there's your social accountability. You assess it. Like, I've taken over 2 programs that were in pretty bad shape so far. And you just find out, like, why are they in bad shape? What was it, right? And I give Will Ryan a lot of grace because he took over a program that was COVID year 1, transfer portal, and then NIL. It's basically like having 3 separate pandemics in 3 years. It's like the whole thing flipped on its head 3 times, and that's tough. That's tough to do. And so you go in there and you assess your ability, your academic accountability, your social accountability, your cultural accountability, and you see what you got in your program, and then you decide, all right, where do we got to go with this? So what went wrong, and where do we got to go? And then you look at, all right, well, who's here to stay? Like, who do you got on your roster? Who's left over? And if you got these certain spots, and you start looking at classes, you can't have a bunch of seniors and then redo this again next year. Right. And you can't have a bunch of freshmen because we all know that San Diego State was the oldest team in the NCAA tournament, 23.2 years old, right? And so the trick now is, I think a lot of people are thinking, and coaches or programs are thinking, you got to get old, then you got to stay old. But I think it's you got to get old, but then you got to grow old. Right? And I know it's hard to say, well, but you can't grow, you can't keep people around, but it's a competitive happiness that your roster has to have. And that's the way I look at it, is competitive happiness, meaning that you get a roster, you build a roster where everybody knows where they stand and everybody sees that they have growth gap potential. And then you maybe have, we got a bunch of guys, we got some guys in the transfer portal, but we got different variations of it. We got a junior college kid named Elijah Jones who won the national championship at John A. Logan, junior, right? We got a transfer from Wyoming and Noah Reynolds, who I recruited out of high school, junior. I got Foster Wonders from Southern Illinois, redshirt sophomore. Preston Rudiger from Valpo, sophomore, right? And you start to see this, and you got a grad transfer from Will Eames, who I coach at Missouri Western, connection there, right? Graduate transfer senior. Got a Division II All-American from Rockhurst, 6'9", trigger 4'5", named Rich Byrie, right? Junior, but he's a grad transfer. He's already graduated. So we're spacing out these classes. We held over a senior. We held over 2 seniors. We held over a redshirt freshman. And then we got 4 freshmen coming in. And so what you see is these spaced out classes. You got some freshmen, you got some sophomores, you got some juniors, you got some seniors. And now you have kind of this, what I call competitive happiness, is you see like where people are at. So you can't look, if you're a freshman, you can't look ahead of you and think, oh my God, there's a whole roster full of sophomores and juniors. Right. What if I'm not good enough? What if I don't play? And you can't, as a coach, look there and say, oh my God, I have a whole roster full of seniors. And then I have, 5 freshmen. It's like, okay, well, so what's going to happen now? Like, what happens when those seniors graduate? I got to look at this competitive balance here and see that there's room for the guys to get better. They can grow without the pressure of trying to have these expectations placed upon them at a young age. And they can play through some failures and some mistakes. They can have the opportunity if they choose to, because I like players choose if they want a red shirt. And so for me, it was just really about, and we recruit people first, not players. So they have to fit who we are. And our staff knows those things. When we evaluate, we out-evaluate people. That's our goal, is we try to out-evaluate on the human side of things more so than the athletic ability side of things. And so we get to that, and get in depth in all that minutia. But at the end of the day, you just like hiring a staff. I recruit the person, not the position. I recruit the person, not the player.
Right.
First and foremost, because at the end of the day, there's got to be a requisite level of skill set and ability that you have to do to play at this level. So
no doubt.
You have that, but if you don't have the characteristics, you don't have that, the character traits of a good human being that fits our culture, then it probably is not going to work out for you.
Yep.
So it's crazy. 60 days. I mean, 60 days, we got 11 guys on a roster.
Yeah.
We've in 60 days, we were able to just bam, bam, bam. And you can't do a visit a day and you can't do one visit a weekend. We had to do some group visits, which honestly, it's trial and error sometimes, you get parents are along with it. You kind of see egos, if it works out, if it doesn't work out. But then you might hit it in spades. We hit a couple of weekends where the parents were awesome. The kids were awesome. The group, connected.
Yeah.
And we got some commitments out of it. So it was really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Coach, I looking at the 11 guys you put together, fantastic job in 60 days. And being a Division III coach, we often found at that level, when we would bring two on together, sometimes that worked really good for us, honestly, because the kids maybe mesh, the parents mesh, they see the vision, or we went 0 for 2. but it happens. But I love the way you guys went about building that roster, and I love that phrase, grow old, because you're right. Right now, these 23, 22-year-old teams like San Diego, I mean, there's something to a 23-year-old going against the 18-year-old in the NCAA tournament. Yeah.
I mean, you got to we're very transparent in how we do things. So we tell our players all the time. I mean, especially freshmen, is like the biggest, difficulty you're going to have is that you're a freshman and you're going to be going against, San Diego State, dude. Adam Seiko was freaking old, man. Keyshawn Johnson was old, man. Old. We had to go against him in Wyoming, and he's just like sitting here like, man, you got men's league. You guys be in the men's league right now, or else, you should be playing overseas for 4 years. But that's why they were so good. I mean,
so good.
Old, smart, tough, right?
Yep.
Like that's a sweet combination to have.
Yep, absolutely, Coach. And then when you get these players, and now you have some summer workouts, I know it's an exciting time because now you're going to be able to work with them. And then, of course, the fall, you build up by establishing your culture. And I know your culture is built off these 9 principles that you shared with me. And I want to go over them, and I want to talk about like what it means to be in the Green Bay program. And you said player first and person first. I love that. Just starting with the very first one on your sheet is be on time. It sounds so simple, Coach, but talk about that a little bit.
Well, I mean, it's a Coach Meyer-ism, right, too. Just got to be on time. If you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. And what I've come to find out in Green Bay, the Green Bay way is Lombardi time, right? Vince Lombardi was 15 minutes early, man. That was all the time. And it's funny how these things kind of align. I always tell people, if you want to treat somebody right, be 1% better today, but also be 1% on time by 1%. And that's 14.4 minutes, ironically, is 1% of your day out of 24 hours, is 14.4 minutes. And so it only takes 1%, man, to make a big difference, to be on time, to show up, do the work, be accountable, serve others. And to me, that's stuck with me since playing for Coach Meyer, because I think, and I heard Coach McCullum say this, and I loved it, Ben McCullum at Northwest Missouri State. The most selfish thing you can do is abuse somebody else's time.
Yes.
Because time is the only thing you can't get back, right? It's a very valuable commodity. Like the clock is ticking right now. I'm getting older and getting more gray hairs. We're losing time right now in other areas of our life. That could be with our family or our friends. It could be with our program. So every time you give away your time, or you expect somebody to come meet you on time, cherish that. Be cognizant of that. Be present and be early.
Yes.
So being on time is a big part, because once again, we don't want to be a program that's showing up late to the party.
Right. I love that, Coach. And that's where it starts. It sounds so simple, but it's so true. And I agree with that, respecting others' time. Thank you for taking the time today for being on our podcast, man. I gotta say it. I really do appreciate that, because time is important, especially when you're a D1 head coach. Coach, my next one I got to go to, which I'm excited to talk about. Bring your own juice. Talk about bring your own juice, Coach.
Well, let's not get it twisted, all right? This is a good juice right here, all right? This is an adult juice right here. I love the fact that you have Brew and basketball, because I'm a bourbon guy. I love old fashions, and Wisconsin, I guess, apparently is the home of supper clubs and old fashions. Now they make them a little different than I'm used to. They have the sweet and sour muddled all together, put some soda in there. It kind of, waters it down a little bit, but the Brew and basketball deal is fun. So I've never done a podcast like this. It's
Yeah.
freaking phenomenal. I think it's a genius
Appreciate
idea.
it.
We're gonna keep pumping you up. Bring your own juice.
Yeah.
Honestly, if you could take BYOJ, I'll really dumb it down and keep it real simple for people, because I think people are always curious. What does that mean? Bring your own juice, and it can mean something different for everybody. But BYOJ is the simple acronym of, bring your own juice, but also double meaning here: be yourself and obtain joy. Okay. And I think life is a comparathon right now. Social media has got us in the comparathon. And so we're running this race that we can't win. Every time we look out there, we try to compare what we have or what we don't have to somebody else, or what they're doing or what we're not doing. And how do we get to this point in our life? And we stop being present and we start running this comparathon. And so for me, it started back in 2015, 16 when I was working for Rex Walters. I just decided that I was going to be a juiceful guy. My gift in life that God gave me was gratuitous amounts of energy. And I believe that when God gives you gifts, if you don't use them, he'll take them away. As I just firmly believe that he'll use them, he'll give them to somebody else who will use it for the greater good. And since I have that energy and I have that juice that's unlimited, I'm going to continue to give my gift away. Because Jerry Krause, God rest his soul, just died here last week. The White Wizard from Gonzaga, edited over 800 manuscripts for the game of college basketball. Said there's 3 things you got to do in life. 1, discover your unique gift or talent. 2, develop your unique gift or talent. And 3, give it away. Because what are we doing if it's Christmas Day and we got all the presents still in the closet, right? We could have went out there and got them. We could have wrapped them, but we didn't give them away. And our goal as human beings in this world is to find our unique gift or talent, develop it, and give it away. I firmly believe that. And I'll always remember Coach Krause for saying those. This ring in my head, because it's just like his isms and Coach Meyer isms always stick with me. When I was working for Rex, man, I just decided that's my gift. I'm going to give it away, and we're going to see what happens out of this. No expectation, right? You can't give with the idea of I want to get something back.
Right.
And honestly, the more I give, the more I get just from the universe. And since 2015, 16, life has been pretty cool for me. I'm not saying it's all because of the juice, but I will say that, went back to my alma mater, went to a national championship, got my first head coaching job, got to coach at a place that I've wanted to play at my entire life. I got to coach at University of Wyoming when Jeff Linder gave me the opportunity, go to the NCAA tournament, which is a freaking cool experience. And then got a first Division I head coaching job here in Green Bay, and met my wife and have 2 kids all in that same time frame.
Wow.
And so I could say this, man, it's God is good. The juice is real. All right. So, but I started being comfortable with who I was and stopped comparing what I was, thinking what I was supposed to be or somebody else's ideology of what a coach or what Sundance Wicks is supposed to be like. So be yourself and obtain true joy, because that's internal, man. That's where we change. We change from the inside.
Yeah. Oh, Coach, absolutely love that. And we tell our guys too, don't compare. Don't compare. Do your thing. Run your race. Bring your own juice. I love that. And wow, what a run you are on since 2016, Coach.
We're running the heater right now, man. We're running the heater, right? We all know it could be taken away tomorrow, so we just got to be grateful for it all. So
no, exactly, and be where your feet are, and your feet are in Green Bay right now. So I know you're going to do big things there too. I have no doubt about it, Coach. You have to, because my brother told me to tell you that he has a senior senior at college who goes to GB, and he says he's tired. He wants to watch some good basketball this year, Coach. And I
Send him our way.
Yeah, no, he's not a player, Coach. He's not a player at all, but he is. He's going to be a senior in your student section, cheering you guys on.
He can still be involved in the flock, baby. So we'd have this alliteration thing. It's weird up in Green Bay, the Phoenix PH,
right?
And then we have the flock, which is PHLLC, and then we call it Future Phoenix PH. We spell everything with PH. It's really weird, man. Like the Flash is our mascot. It's PH. Yeah. So you get it, right? Yeah.
Yep. I love it, Coach. I love it. Well, he'll be there. Coach, next one. Progress is never linear. Embrace the suck.
Oh, man. So Jimmy Edel, our strength coach at Wyoming, we're really fond of Jimmy. And Jimmy's great because I love a very open and honest strength coach, because he'll look at you and he's going to tell you, when you're gaining strength and you're gaining speed and explosion and mass, there's gonna be ups and downs. Progress is never linear. You just think because you started lifting weights for the first time that it's gonna be like this. And eventually, if you just only do this, then it just plateaus, right? So it's up, it's down, it's all around. There's adversity, there's successes, there's trials, there's tribulations, there's joys, there's pain, right? Progress is never linear. And so we always have to embrace the journey, and the fact that I think so many of us want it perfect, right? And building a team is never perfect. There's so many things. It's like a family. And, most families are crazy, right? Like I speak, my family's crazy. Like everybody's family, my wife's family's crazy. Like everybody's family's a little bit crazy.
Yep.
And you just got to embrace that, right?
Yeah.
There's the hard. And I love the Navy SEALs mantra with embrace the suck,
Mm-hmm.
because you embrace what's hard.
Yep.
Ultimately, that's what makes you grow, and that's what makes you great, just outside of your, outside of your comfort zone.
Sure.
And I think so many times it's like these play in the comparathon, once we get back to that, players look and they're like, oh, it looks really fun over there. I mean, that looks really awesome. Like whatever they're showing, it looks so cool. And that's like 0.001% of actually what happens throughout the course of a day in their life.
Yep.
It's just the magnified spot,
Yep.
And we just are constantly preaching to our guys, like, enjoy the hard stuff, man. The hard shit,
Yep.
like that's what really gets you going.
Yep. Exactly.
And that's where like you find inner strength. That's where you find true confidence. It's easy. Everybody loves a winner, right? And so you guys hitting shots and you're going on a run, everybody loves that and everybody gets all excited. But, offense excites people.
Yep.
They like to see that stuff. You know what inspires people is defense, because defense, it sucks, right? It's freaking hard to get down in the stance, guard somebody, do a perfect closeout, stop the shot, win the first dribble, take it in the chest, go hit somebody in the weak side, go grab a two-handed rebound, chin it, and then outlet it. Like nobody's like, oh man, that was freaking awesome. I mean, look at that. But the real ones know that defense freaking sucks, man. It's hard. So embrace it. Be a good defensive team, and you got a chance to be in every game. And so like that's where the embracing the hard part of it. And Coach Meyer always had this sheet. It was called the easy and the hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
The hard. Go back and compare. This is easy. This is hard.
Yep.
Showing up on time is easy. Showing up early is hard. Right. And like all these little things we'll celebrate the singles, and on a daily basis, we love it when we hit doubles, but we're not overly excited about grand slams because we know those don't happen very often. Right.
Yep.
But so we just want to make sure that we celebrate the little things, but also embrace the joy and the struggle of a hard practice, of the dog days when everybody else doesn't want to be there. We wake up with great juice, great energy, and we're ready to rock and roll.
Yep. I love that, Coach. And you're so right, because everyone wants to see the results right away. And this is a great one for freshmen too, about the linear. I mean, there are ups and downs. We had Nolan Smith on our podcast. He was our last guest, and he talked about being a freshman at Duke. And he's like, I want to come in. I feel like I'm going to light up the world. And boy, was I humbled quick. But when I did have that good moment when Coach K would praise me in practice, he said that was it. And then it just built. But he said it was very up and down, and it goes right with it.
I tell you what, it's funny he talked about when Coach K would praise me in practice. Like, I could live off one compliment from Coach Meyer. I think I got 2 of them my entire 4 years, but I could live off a compliment for like 2 years, right? Like, you just gave me a compliment. The words of affirmation is probably my love language. I could live off that for a while. So I appreciate what Nolan said, when get a compliment.
Yeah. Wow, Coach Meyer too. What legends. Okay, Coach, the next one, you get what you expect, inspect, and accept.
Yeah, this is another Coach Meyer one.
Okay,
he's always give this at clinics, and I think sometimes it gets lost in the translation because of how it like kind of rolls together. But obviously, every program that's successful has expectations, standards that need to be met, right? And so ultimately, you get if I come into this program, I said these are my expectations. This is what I expect. I expect you to be on time, right? And I expect you to bring your own juice. I expect you to embrace the suck, knowing that it's going to be hard and it's not going to be easy. Those are more intangible expectations, right? But let's say I expect you to shoot great shots. Well, what's a great shot? I expect you to shoot paint touch rotation threes versus non-paint threes, where we don't get a paint touch or a rotation. So I expect you to shoot that shot. I expect you to take care of the basketball. What does that mean? Well, I expect you to make sure that you're playing off 2 feet when you drive and not just leave your feet to throw a pass and throw impulse passes. I expect you to go get the rebound with 2 hands, 2 feet, 2 cheeks, right? And be sure with it. I have these expectations. So that's fine. Anybody could sit there and say, like, this is what I expect. These are my standards. I can write it on a wall. I mean, I could tell you exactly what it is and be like, I expect all this stuff. These guiding principles are expectations, right? But then where we fail a lot of times is the measurables. How do we inspect what we expect? So what's important to us? It's different for every program. I always think you have cultural accountability and is what you inspect. So you expect it, but what do you inspect? So how do you measure it? Well, how do you measure non-paint threes versus paint touch rotation threes? How do you measure when you go get a rebound with one hand versus two hands, or if you just do your job, if you go hit and get, or you check and chase, or if you're in the corners, are you banana cutting through the elbows, potentially getting a long offensive rebound? How do you measure these things? Are you charting that? And so ultimately you can have expectations, it's fine, but the inspect, I think, is an important part, because coaches get emotional and irrational with the way that they approach their players when they don't have a very systematic system or they don't have a dialed-in system evaluation. Analytics, they call it nowadays, right?
Yep.
Metrics.
Yep.
And so I believe that data takes the emotion out of evaluation. I show you a number equated to an expectation, X the result, right? There we go. And we don't get that result. I don't have to get mad. I just tell you, these are the expectations. This is how we measure it. We didn't get it. It's not good enough. So let's continue. Let's move on. So let's get there. And ultimately, either can or won't. And so the whole idea of inspecting is to find out who can, who can't, and who won't.
Yep.
And sometimes it's an effort deal. Sometimes it's an ability deal. And those that can probably will.
Yep.
And they probably will play.
Yep.
That's all. Like it's So this is what you expect. This is how you inspect it, right? So we have to have a measure something, because the Milwaukee Bucks, one of their principles, if you can't measure it, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
I appreciate what Peter shared with us on those things. And ultimately, though, like, it goes even further down the rabbit hole. Accept. You get what you accept.
Right.
So at the end of the day, I can expect it, inspect it, but if I don't have any, form of how do I convey what I just inspected and say, like, this is unacceptable.
Right.
So now, all right, let's just say we're going to run for every time that we miss a block out or we don't make an attempt at it. We're going to put that on the mark, and you got to hit 80% on charting your offensive rebound or defensive rebounding effort. And now you don't get that. All right, here's the result. If we don't get it, we run. This is just part of it. There's an outcome that we did not achieve. Why? Here, all right. Here's either a reward is a win, all right? A reward is a win, a punishment is a loss. So would you rather run and understand, like, this is the issue here? I mean, it's different for everybody, but ultimately you get what you accept, right? At the end of the day, you could do all these things, you could talk about it, you could evaluate it, but if you just accept it, I guess I just won't say anything today. I guess what I just measured doesn't really matter that much to me. You could really dumb all that down and go, you get what you accept, man. In your program, you get what you accept. And you don't want to, at the end of the day, you don't want to let bad things happen in your program. Well, measure it and then don't accept it.
Yep. Yeah, I love it. Coach, it's simple. And again, it's measurable. It makes a ton of sense. And there's no gray area with that, and with the analytics and with the numbers with it. Coach, I love the next one. We use it in our program too. I can't stress enough. Over communicate, not just communicate. Talk about the importance of communication and why you say over communicate.
If we're not swinging the pendulum right now on communication, I think we're failing everybody, because we just think we can send a text message, it'll be solved, but we all know there's a failure to communicate right now in society. Right, wrong, or indifferent. It's just the way the landscape has changed. Just people don't talk face to face anymore. They don't deliver the mail to the right person, right? So they'll send it in the group chat, or they'll say something that could be interpreted a different way. Like, we're just overthinking, not over communicating. What was that message that was just sent to me? And so I'm just not a big no surprises guy. That's all I care about. Like, no surprises. So if you're going to be late, over communicate with me. There's still going to be a consequence to that, to being late, but just over communicate. No surprises. Yep. I don't need to sit here and wait for 15 minutes when you could have just told me, hey, I'm stuck in traffic, coach. I'm going to be a little bit late right now. Great. Thanks for the over communication. Now we got to plan better next time on why you were late or why you were stuck in traffic. And it's just every deal, when you take over a program, every deal is a big deal. I don't care what anybody says. How you do anything is how you do everything. Everything in your program when you first take it over in the 90 days is, you're going to learn about all the ins and outs of Green Bay, what's going on, how to deal with international students, what about housing, who do we need to talk to. Don't let molehills become mountains. Over communicate. We can solve problems. And ultimately you can FIO, you can try to figure it out yourself, but sometimes that doesn't work. We can't just figure it out ourselves. Sometimes we need to over communicate with somebody who knows more than us. And I learned from Ricardo Patton a long time ago, you don't have to have all the answers. You got to know where to find them. Yep. And so if you can know where to find them, that's probably a pretty good trait. That means you over communicate, and that means you trust other people than yourselves to help you get things done.
Yeah. Oh, coach, that's so good, and it's something that the players and coaches we take forward in our next chapter, and players will too. When whatever they go do, at some point the basketball is all done, they're going to take that to their jobs in the business world or whatever they become, and learn how to communicate and over communicate. So important.
The biggest problem I have right now in my marriage is when I don't communicate with my wife. So
Right.
I can tell you that right now. Like, you're going to need that. You're going to need the skill of over communicating at a high level for the rest of your life.
Yep.
Right? Like, you
Yep.
over communicate with your wife, as hard as that may be sometimes, just like it is with assistants got to tell a head coach something, or players got to tell a coach something. It
Yep.
feels like, man, I don't really want to say this, but I probably should.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
you're going to find out it stops a lot of problems before they start.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. I love it, Coach. Coach, next one that we have, this is the one that's a little bit longer. Seek alignment. Who you say you are must align with what you do. I love that, Coach. Talk on that a little bit.
It's a cultural thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we're on a journey of self here as human beings. Most of what we do right now, if we really look at ourselves as teachers, mentors, students of the game, lifelong learners, like, we're on a journey of self. And I tell players, like, one, you have to learn who you are. So seek alignment within who am I? Who am I first and foremost? Who am I not? I think that's a big part of self-awareness, is who am I not? What are my non-negotiables? What don't I believe in? Because we can all find things that we believe in, but what won't I do? What won't I believe in?
Yeah.
And a part of that is, learning who the genuine, truly, uniquely authentic version of yourself is. And so seeking alignment first and foremost, before you can help anybody else, you got to help yourself.
Yeah.
And so you're going to see a lot of these principles are about the person, right? Once again, we're trying to help mold young men and create, self-sufficient, productive citizens of society. The ball, like you said, the ball's going to stop bouncing. Most of us play 4 years.
Yep.
We don't play much longer. And so culturally, like, you have your identity as a human being, but then you have your team identity. And who we say we are has to align up with what we do. So it's the same thing with our program. Is, if this is who we are, and this is who I tell you we are going to be, and when you come into practice, then you better come in and see alignment with what we say we are. And I think that's how you understand the difference between a con man or someone who's real, like a real dude. A con man's going to tell you a lot of things, and then you're going to go watch what they do, and you're going to be like, that dude is not really who he says he is. And then with the program, you're going to be like, this program talks about a lot of things, but they're not really who they say they are. Mm-hmm. And I think that's important. And so we always try to seek alignment. And everybody's standards and cultural expectations are different. I mean, someone's going to have different set of expectations that they expect versus Green Bay, and that's okay. Yep. But ultimately, it's got to be aligned, right? We tell our players all the time, like, you got to align with who we are. So I want you to align with yourself first and foremost, because I want you to learn how to be you. But then I need you to align with us, who we say we are, because that's the team concept. And so Coach Meyer always said, contrary to popular belief, life is a team sport. You're always going to have to try to find alignment with future employers. But there's a lot more entrepreneurs out there now. Why? Because they don't want alignment. They just want to be themselves. And that's fine. That's the beauty of society nowadays and the free market that we live in, is that you can go create something unique and truly you without having to align with anybody else. But you're not going to get as far as you need to get, because that's why there's Shark Tank.
Right.
I need the Sharks' help, right? Like, I got to go give some of my company away so the Sharks should come in and invest with me, So right. Ultimately, we still have to find alignment.
Yep, absolutely. Just a true teamwork way to put it, Coach. I love it. These are so good, Coach. These 9 are just dynamite. Number 7 is protect the vibe. I got to hear about this one, because I don't know what this is, but I'm excited to hear about it. Protect the vibe, Coach. What does that mean? PTV,
baby. Protect the vibe. You can be the last person selling CDs, right? And I think, you're sitting around, you just kind of laugh at somebody. If you was walking through a parking lot, some guy opened up his trunk selling the old Ludacris album. You're like, I got CDs in here. I got 5 for 20, 5 for 20 CDs in here. You're like, dude, I stream my music, man. I'm on Spotify and Apple Music. I don't need your CDs, bro. I don't even know what a CD player is. And protecting the vibe, to me, is the new way that this thing has gone. Everybody always, what's the vibe? Kids are out there to hip young kids, and I'm an older man now, 2 kids, what's the vibe like? Oh, it's a vibe in here. What's the vibe like? And I think this goes back to Coach Meyer's saying, is like, the circle is sacred, right? Your team is sacred. It's a new school way of saying that protect the inner circle. No matter what we have to look after each other. We have to protect the vibe of our team. We can't let anybody break the inner sanctum and disrupt our vibe and disrupt our flow and tell us that we're not doing what we should be doing. At the end of the day, we are the judge, jury, and executioners of our own program and our own culture, right?
Yep.
It starts and stops with us, the coaches and the players.
Yep.
And the community will be involved, and I'm big on the community and community-driven culture and having kind of ownership in what we do, but they're not there every single day.
Yep.
They're coming and showing up to games, and some people are more entrenched than others. But you got to protect the vibe of your team. And then you're just going to go back to the person. What's the vibe of your player like? If you are really about caring, connecting, and competing at a high level with your guys, then you're going to have a pulse in your program. And Coach Meyer was so good at always, and he was like probably the least personable guy in a one-on-one situation you'd ever be around, but in a group setting he was great. But at playing for him, he'd always come in and he'd look at me and he'd go, "Sonny, what's the pulse? What's the pulse of our guys right now? You know,
right.
You have pulse of your program."
Yep.
And as a leader, I'd had to tell him, like, you know, guys, we've been going, coach. Like, guys are exhausted right now. Like, we don't have a lot of good stuff right now.
Yep.
I was a big pitcher, right? You like talking about pitching. And you always do this with his pitching motion. And, you know, it showed the guy's got some stuff. He's got some stuff to him. We got a lot of movement. And I just tell him, like, the guys don't have a lot of stuff right now. So just forget me pitching on, you know, day rest. It's not very good.
Yep.
And that he was really good at asking his guys what the vibe was like without asking what the vibe was like. Right. And then adapting, improvising, adapting, and overcoming, and saying, like, okay, maybe today's got to be a different practice. Right. He wasn't Ted Lasso by any means. Like, he wasn't going to go take us on a field trip, you know, out in the community and show us all these cool things. But he was really, really good at understanding what the vibe was, because he asked his players, and protecting the circle.
Yep.
And I think that's what made our team so special and so great. And that's what we kind of strive for too, is to protect the vibe of the guys, knowing that everybody in there has your back. They're completely vulnerable and open and honest, right? Very transparent. It's a different vibe than a lot of that transactional stuff that goes on nowadays. It's very transformational.
Yep. I love that, Coach. And that's how, you know, we'd always ask our team, what's the pulse of the team? Coach, you're so right about Coach Meyer. My first time, I was so excited to meet Coach Meyer and nervous. And we were up at Northern State when I was at SMSU, and I saw him walking down the hall. So it was going to be, this was before the game, during the women's game. And I was going to talk to him, but he was talking to himself. At least that's what I thought as he's walking. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to interrupt that. And I walked right by him, but he was talking in the microphone, just talking.
He's talking in the dictaphone.
Just talking. I was like, wow, man. I said, but I got another chance. And then just the pleasure to meet him. And then when I did meet him, he's like, you could come to my house and my open book and knowledge and just whatever you want, I'll help you, young coach. And I was like, wow, this guy is unbelievable. And crazy. That was just my experience. Yeah.
The Mecca of all, like, people would journey. The Mecca of basketball coaches, they would journey to like weird places like Aberdeen, South Dakota. And, you know, Dick Bennett, we was talking to me the other day, and he didn't remember that he did a clinic up there when John Wooden came to Aberdeen. And it was Dick Bennett, John Wooden. I mean, what a crazy, Don Meyer, Jerry Krause, all there under one roof. I was like, this is insane.
That's insane.
And it was just, he would open up his doors to anybody. He'd have all these random coaches would be sleeping on sleeping bags in his house. You know, I do that nowadays. My wife thinks I'm like weird. You know, I'm sort of, you know, hippie commune over here. You know, what's going on?
I love it. What legendary coaches you came across there, Coach. Two more. Know your ABCs in your program. What does that mean in UWGB basketball?
Yeah, so know your ABCs, and for the staff, it's always be caring, connecting, and competing. Right. So it's always caring, always connecting, and always competing. And I think that's the new way. You got to kind of go, you got to care about your guys. And the old phrase is, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so you got to care for your guys. And look, this can get super transactional nowadays with people like there for a year and they're gone and transfer portal, all this stuff. That doesn't mean you don't have to care for somebody that's in your program within a year, right? You can always care. And we have to accept that, like, it's going to happen. People are going to leave your program. It's not a reflection of you necessarily, as it might be just a situation or circumstances. And maybe nowadays kids can better themselves or better their situation faster than they could have in years past. And so once again, don't be the last person selling CDs. So care for them while you're in your program. Just do the right thing. Connect with them. Learn about who they are as human beings. I think you get more out of guys when you can kind of find a cultural connection point with them. You don't have to know where I'm from. You don't have to be where I'm from to have a level of empathy and want to learn about somebody. I actually like really enjoy hearing journeys and stories, and like they train me in a lot of ways, coming from certain situations and different backgrounds. So to me, like it's equally as exciting to just listen and connect with them on their journeys. And then competing, because now we've connected, and I know this, we'll run through brick walls for each other when we compete for each other. And I think, the competitive side of this can't be lost. And any of these things that we do is ultimately you have to compete every single day. We got to compete, to eat, as your family, you got to compete to put food on the table. You got to go out there and compete right now. You're grinding right now on a podcast. You got to compete in your realm to be great. You want to get more followers, you want to get more listeners, you want to get viewership up, you want to get more sponsorship. That's competing. So as a staff, it's always be recruiting, because you always got to be recruiting. So ABC, always be recruiting. As players, always be competing. And then ultimately, we know that over-encompassing arch is always be caring, connecting, and competing. So there's a lot of ways you can take those ABCs, but that's some things you'll hear our guys you'll say, man, we always got to be competing, man. Coach always wants us competing, and that's what we are. We're going to be a program that competes at a high level. I don't ever promise wins, and I don't ever say like, well, we're going to win this many games, or talk about the losses in a bad way. It's at the end of the day, did we compete the right way? That's honoring the game, right? Playing against the game.
Yep, absolutely, Coach. And that's transformational, over transactional, that when you're doing it that way. And that's what it's all about. So even if they're there 1 year, you're getting them a transformational experience and caring about them. I love that. And Coach, and the last one, and it should be the last one, is believe. Believe, Coach. Tell me about what that means. And when you're talking to your basketball players at Green Bay, what that means.
Shout out Ted Lasso and shout out Dick Bennett right now, okay? Because the funny thing about it is, I don't want to do a spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't watched the last season of Ted Lasso, but ultimately they get to this point in the season where they play in this game and they go, you just got to go out there. Ted goes, I got to go out there and play hard. We got to go play smart. We got to go play together. And we got to believe, And so, like, Dick Bennett said, play hard, play smart, play together, right? And I think that was passed on from a lot of coaches too, but you add believe to that at the end. And belief is a funny thing. Without belief, what are we, right? What is faith? Faith is believing without seeing. Without belief in anything bigger than ourselves, what are we? Like, it's really the all-encompassing, overarching thing of life right now is, what do we believe in, right? And it goes back to knowing yourself. It goes back to your cultural standards. Like, do we believe in these? And it's not buy-in. I just, like, so many times you hear coaches talk buy-in. And I get it. Like, there's verbiage for everybody. But to me, if you believe in something, you will sell out your whole existence for it. And if you buy into something, you can sell out of it.
Right.
If I buy into a stock, I can sell out of it. If I buy into a company, I can sell my shit. I can sell out at any point. I don't want to be a sellout. I want to believe in things. And that doesn't mean, I've said, you don't have to be someplace forever to believe in it, right? Faith is very transient, man. It's all over the place. Like, you can be anywhere and believe in your God. You don't have to be in one spot. So ultimately, wherever you said, be where your feet are, Nick Saban. If you can be where your feet are and believe at a high level in what you're doing and what you're about, what your program stands for, your players believe in it. We don't have to, culture doesn't take 4 years anymore. We can believe in something bigger than ourselves tomorrow if we wake up and choose to. We have to know why we believe in that. So we have to answer the why question. But as we get through these guiding principles and we start talking about the holistic development of a young man and what we're about as a program, ultimately we get to that last one, we're pushing that boulder up the hill, like, and it gets heavy. Like, we got to believe that I'm going to be there for them. We got to believe that the players are going to be there for each other. We got to believe that our community is going to be behind us. We got to believe that when we get to the top of that mountain, all right, there's going to be something there waiting for us. And it may not be a championship, but maybe it's growth. Maybe it's self-discovery. Maybe it's self-awareness. Maybe it's a higher enlightenment. We got to believe that what we're doing has a purpose bigger than just me pushing a boulder up a hill by myself without anybody else along with me. We are on this ride together. And so that's my relentlessly optimistic way of looking at life. But I believe at a high level in everything that we do as a program. I believe in our young men. I believe in our communities that we're around, whether I was at Wyoming or at Missouri Western, or I was at Northern State, I'm at Green Bay, I'm at San Francisco, I'm at Northern Illinois, I'm at Colorado. It doesn't matter. I'm in Arizona. I believe in what I'm doing. I believe in the guys that are, in the people that are around us. And everywhere I've ever been, I've met phenomenal people who have helped us move the needle in ways that I couldn't even fathom. And to me, like, that is remarkable, because that is the belief in the human spirit and the human soul and the people that give, not to get, but because it's the right thing to do. And that could be support, that could be time, that could be human capital, that could be monetary, it could be finance, whatever. But those that believe, I mean, we live a life of joy, man. I tell you, I don't, not a day that I don't have a smile on my face. So I know times get tough, but I tell you what, man, it's part of it. That's embracing the suck. And I love it just as much. And so we got to believe, baby. We got to believe.
Coach, I believe you're going to do great things up there, and I'm really excited to follow them. Coach, I got 2 more questions. This has been too good. We're going to have to get you back on a podcast next year and talk some basketball parts of the X's and O's maybe. But these are gems. Coach, a friend of mine wanted me to ask you this personally. Just a lot of people read about Coach Meyer, never met him. I know it's hard to describe, but you played for him for 4 years. You coached under him. And I've heard you quote Coach Meyer here in the last 40 minutes just so many times. Can you just talk about, what he meant to you, and then also just the lessons or just anything about Coach Don Meyer?
He's in your DNA. It's like anybody who played. Like I hear these former players at Green Bay talk about Coach Bennett, talk about Coach Buss, or I talk about the Coach Heidemann, talk about Coach Wardle, Coach Kowalczyk. I hear him talk about these guys, and if you're somewhere for 4 years, that coach is going to be in your DNA, man. Like Coach Meyer is going to be a dad to me, just a second dad. And your parents are the first people that teach you these lessons. Your coaches are the second. Your teachers, if you've got some really inspirational ones that are around you and impact you, they become part of your core. Yeah. And so I think that's what I wish players nowadays understood more, is that if they went through a little bit more of the hard, they embraced a little bit more of it, that they would end up having some of their DNA, right? Some of their coaches' DNA in them. Right. And they'd be referencing some of the stuff they're going through and be like, you know what? I remember Coach saying this, and this has helped me through that. And I don't have to figure it out on my own. I was already told what it was going to be. And to me, like, that's what makes a great teacher is delayed gratification. Yep. Coach Meyer was the king of delayed gratification. Even though he didn't give you a lot of compliments, right? He never got a lot either, because players would always play for him. He was so tough on you. Mm-hmm. Like great coaches are, they're going to be tough on you. Disciplined, demanding, never demeaning. He was so tough on you. And that you'd sit there and when you're going through it, you're like, just freaking, just tell me I'm doing a damn good job. Just tell me one time. But he's easy to please and hard to satisfy. And so then when he did tell you that it was well worth it, that compliment, because you earned it. And to me, like, that's the delayed gratification side of this, is when you were done, he'd love you up, man. As an alumni, man, like, he'd love you up. He'd call you, he'd talk to you. And it was just like, man, I understand now why you didn't do that when I was playing, because you got so much out of me that I could never have got out myself. And that's why we need coaches, teachers, leaders, mentors. We got to draw something out of these young men and women, that they can't do themselves. Yep. And they got to be, and you got to care and connect with them enough so they can become vulnerable enough to allow you in that space to draw the best version of themselves out of them. Yep. And it's so hard to get there. And he was the master of it. Why you don't understand it, don't understand the mad scientists at the time. But it's just the greatest thing that he ever taught me was about delayed gratification. Mm-hmm. Going into this profession, if you seek immediate gratification and praise, you'll kill yourself, because you'll sit there and look like, who's talking? If you're looking for all the things that people are saying about you, what about me over here? Yep. It's never going to be enough, and it's never going to come soon enough, and you're just going to go crazy. Yep. And so don't get in this for that. Yep. Sherry Cole said, never underestimate your potential impact. Impact. Yep. It's years down the line. Yep. And so, Coach, I could do a whole quote book on him, and they got Meyer Mondays on Twitter, where they just honor him and stuff. And it's amazing how many lives he's touched. And we'll all fall short of that goal if we try to be like Coach Meyer. So I'm not trying to be him, but I do remember him on a daily basis. Right. And that's why I can quote him so off cuff. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Is because it's inside you. Right. It's part of your DNA. The Mad Dog Meyer coaching tree still lives on. So. Wow. Well, what an experience you have had playing, now coaching for a long time, and you're going to have a great experience there at Wisconsin Green Bay. Coach, you will do great there, and those people will treat you great. I'm from up that way. I've been down to Texas a long time, but those are some great people up there. And they're going to embrace you. They're going to love you. And my last question is about the area. Now you've been there just a couple months, but do you have a recommendation for a restaurant? We always end our podcast if someone's traveling through who is listening in Green Bay. Where are you sending them, Coach? I've been to one spot that's really extremely unique, and it's called Iron Duck.
Okay.
All right, Iron Duck, and you got to go in there and you got to ask for Caleb, and Caleb runs a joint and tell him and tell Caleb that Sundance sent you.
Okay.
Right, and the Iron Duck, up near the Howard Swamico Ashwaubenon area, right up there in the kind of the northwestern corner of the Green Bay grid.
Yep.
And the Iron Duck has there's a turkey in my backyard right now. That's freaking crazy, man. Like the Green Bay is wild. Like, got a freaking turkey. I'm about to go get Thanksgiving dinner right now. But like, you go up there and you ask for Caleb and tell him Sundance sent you. And then he has this private bourbon selection. I mean, I'm talking like he's traveled the world, and it's the best of the best bourbon selection. And he gives it to you if you're on a special list.
Okay.
He gives it to you at very, very fair prices. You know,
Yeah.
you're talking about like a Pappy Van Winkle for $9, you know, and you're like, that doesn't happen. You know, a Blanton for $6, you know, and you're like, but this private stock stuff that he has. So Iron Duck, it's phenomenal food. And then Caleb's the guy. And so that's a plug right there. Maybe I'll get some more bourbon when I go up there and see him next time.
Coach, you might. That is a pro tip. Bringing it with the spotted cow, now the Iron Duck. Yeah, and I guarantee if my dad's listening tonight, he'll probably be up there tomorrow because he still lives up that way, and he likes the bourbon too. Coach, I can't thank you enough. Just knowing you through the years, and just I have nothing but respect. And like I said, and I really meant this. I'm so happy, Wisconsin Green Bay, that you are the head coach now, and I'm really excited to see what you do, Coach.
Danny, man, I appreciate you, brother. Thanks for having me on today, man.
Yeah, thanks, brother. This was awesome.
Cheers.
Wow. Cheers, Coach. That was awesome. Coach bringing it like I knew he would. We want to just thank you again for listening. Please hit that subscribe button. If you are on YouTube before you get off, please hit that subscribe button. We'd love you to be a subscriber and follow our podcasts wherever you're watching, listening. Keep following us. I want to thank my awesome producer, Jude McLaren, who makes all this happen, and our sponsors, Pie Society, great place for pizza, beer, and spirits right here in San Marcos, and Zellick's Ice House. Go there with some friends. Until next time, from Basketball and Brew, this is Coach Miller.